Coming up on Arirang News, President Moon Jae-in likens the economic situation in South Korea to wartime, calling on officials to direct all their efforts to overcoming it and quitting quickly relief payments to the people. With people out of work and economic activity subdued, South Korea's consumer sentiment this month is the lowest it's been since the financial crisis 11 years ago. And hundreds of South Korean workers have been given special approval by Vietnam to go back to their jobs there. Seoul, in the meantime, is seeking similar permission from more than 20 other countries. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. South Korea's presidential office says cooperation with North Korea on quarantine is a humanitarian issue and not subject to international sanctions. That's according to a top Blue House official on Tuesday when asked about President Moon Jae-in's proposal a day earlier and whether the two Koreas working together on the pandemic would be a sanctions violation. The official told reporters that there appear to be no constraints. He added that Seoul is in discussions with the U.S. on the issue of connecting the two Koreas' railways, as well as allowing individual visits to the north. There has been no response from Pyongyang, he said, but Seoul is hoping for positive feedback and is ready to implement the plans. In regard to the conflicting reports on Chairman Kim Jong-un's health, the official reaffirmed that there have been no unusual signs in the north. Speaking to reporters Monday, U.S. President Donald Trump said that he does know how North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is doing health-wise, but he's not going to share that just yet. There have been rumors and reports that Kim Jong-un is gravely ill or even in a vegetative state after a botched stent procedure. Here's President Trump in the Rose Garden.
Yes, I do have a very good idea, but I can't talk about it now. I just wish him well. I've had a very good relationship with Kim Jong-un.
President Trump went on to say that there will probably be news about Kim's health in the not-too-distant future, but again, he offered no details. President Trump had earlier criticized U.S. media outlets for reporting incorrect information, in his words, about Kim's health, saying they had cited old documents. President Moon has compared the current economic crisis to a war, ordering all-out efforts to be directed to overcoming it and swiftly executing measures to support people and companies. He also reiterated his call for a Korean version of the New Deal to create jobs. Kim Min-ji reports.
President Moon Jae-in has called on the government to go on a national crisis footing by concentrating all its capacity to overcome the economic crisis triggered by COVID-19. Speaking at a cabinet meeting Tuesday, the president likened the situation economically to wartime and warned the conditions could get worse in the second quarter. South Korea's economy contracted by 1.4% on quarter in the first 3 months of this year, the biggest quarterly slump in over 11 years.
전 정력에서 끝을 알 수 없는 경제 충격이 가시화되고 있습니다. 그야말로 경제 전시 상황입니다. 무엇보다도 빠른 정부가 되어야 합니다. 대책의 시간을 끌수록 피해가 커지고 국민과 기업의 어려움이 가중됩니다.
The president ordered officials to thoroughly prepare so households can quickly apply for emergency relief payments. The National Assembly is expected to vote on an extra budget bill that will be used to fund the scheme on Wednesday. The president also highlighted the need for aggressive investment and the swift implementation of schemes to spur consumption, adding that a third extra budget will be used to finance a comprehensive plan to promote spending.
3차 추경안도 실기하지 않아야 합니다. 방역과 일상을 공존해야 하는 시간이 다가옴에 따라 내수 활력 대책도 준비하고 추진할 때가 되었습니다. 국민들은 방역 지침과 수칙을 지키면서 일상적인 사회경제 활동을 시작할 것입니다.
In addition, President Moon emphasized the need for a South Korean version of the New Deal to stimulate job creation, calling on officials to use the country's strengths to actively carry out large-scale projects in information technology. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Mr. Daniel Yu, global strategist at Yuanta Securities. Mr. Yu, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me today.
Well, oil prices have taken a hit again, but U.S. stocks started the week higher. Fill us in on that, please, and why stocks in particular are up right now.
Yes. Wall Street closed higher as the prospects of partial reopening of the U.S. economy boosted the confidence, even though oil price dropped by 23%, right now trading at near $11 territories. If you look at the Ohio Governor Mike DeWine's comment, he said that the consumer retail and service can start reopening on May 12th. And it seems that there were various other states, Texas and South Carolina, Georgia, are all beginning to allow restaurants and other establishments to serve customers. So all being said, people are expecting and hoping that economic recovery might be coming in as hoped. Hopefully by summertime, quite a lot of reopening can actually happen. So therefore, quite a lot of stocks related to the resorts and cruise and various other type of industries that were hurt by the COVID-19 seems to gain share prices movement. If you look at Dow Jones, it jumped about 1.5%. S&P 500 also up 1.5%, and NASDAQ gained 1.1%.
Well, Korean stocks were up and down today. In the end, though, the Kospi was up 0.5%. The KOSDAQ was down. What's the story in the local markets?
Right. Despite the quite strong movement coming from the U.S., Korean market were pretty much flat today because yesterday it rose quite sharply by 1.9%. So it's just taking some breather. The main reason for that is because we are getting into a long holiday season. So Thursday and Fridays are closed, and also next Tuesdays are also closed. So people are using that as a bit of a long-term vacation period. And during that time, if market volatility comes through, then they are quite worried. So that's why I think that they're taking some breathers and maybe taking some profits at the current point in time. Also, if you look at the overall interest rate environment, the corporate bond rates were rising slightly from the low of 0.97% to 1.02%. So people are concerned about maybe there is a little bit of a lack of liquidity that's happening in the market. But nevertheless, we think, though, if you look at the money supply growth rates of Korea, it is hitting over 8% level, which is quite a significant jump from the several months ago. So we think that even though market might be doing some correction, but we don't think that it will be any sizable amount of correction in the future.
Well, Korea's oil refining industry, a big business, is bracing for big losses in the first quarter. In the case of S-Oil, it's reported an operating loss of $1 trillion, which is around $900 million. What stands out to you in these numbers, and what's been the reaction in the market?
Sure. Interestingly, if you look at the S-Oil's share price movement, it bottomed at 48,551 a month ago, and now it is at 68,001, so which is quite a bit of a jump in terms of share price. Despite that, S-Oil reported $1 trillion operating losses. And also next quarter, they're expecting about 400 billion losses. And the reason for that is very simple. These companies are basically, more important is the direction of oil price, not the actual oil price itself. If you are seeing continuation of declining oil prices, that creates a huge losses as you see there. However, though, if you see oil price rising trend, then you can put a refining margin there and then try to sell because demand is always there for Korea, given that Korea is a huge importer of oil. So therefore, these companies can be able to survive this kind of downturn in terms of the profits as long as oil price start to move upward trend. So we have seen negative oil prices. Now it's up to as high as $16 and it came back down to $11. But nevertheless, it seems that we are seeing some stability in terms of oil price going forward. However, though, as the oil price remains to be low because of the usage, alternative energy usage are rising quite rapidly in terms of the economic structure. We think the overall demand for oil is not going to be as strong as before. However, though, you are seeing some usage of automobile rising quite rapidly after the post-COVID-19. If you look at the sales of automobile of China, it actually turned plus YOY numbers recently. So clearly it shows that the people actually start to use automobiles rather than public transportations, which could actually boost up the oil price in general. So all being said, we think that the level of impact in terms of the financial market volatilities, oil price seems to be not really having much impact. As you can see, the oil prices are down more than 12% today in terms of the futures market. Actually now 20% down, but the futures of NASDAQ and S&Ps are all rising. So clearly, financial market is actually beyond this oil price volatility.
Got it. All right, Mr. Yu, thanks so much for sharing your insights today. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Now, with COVID-19 hitting businesses and economic activity in general, South Korean consumers in April are more pessimistic than they've been in more than 11 years. Kim Jae-hee has the latest.
Concerns over the coronavirus outbreak have dragged down consumer sentiment this month to the lowest level in over a decade. According to data from the Bank of Korea on Tuesday, South Korea's composite consumer sentiment index plunged to 70.8 in April. That's a level not seen since December 2008 during the global financial crisis. A reading below 100 means there are more pessimists than optimists. South Korea's consumer sentiment has fallen for the third straight month now since the coronavirus emerged in January. The index fell 7.6 points on month in April, another big fall following the plunge of 18.5 points last month. Looking at things in more detail, the sentiment index on current economic conditions tumbled 7 points on month to 31 in April, the lowest since December 2008. The index on current financial status fell 6 points to 77, and the outlook for jobs was also down 6 points to 58. But the index for people's sentiment toward future economic conditions came to 59, down just 3 points from a month earlier. Meanwhile, Samsung Electromechanics and LG Chem both saw drops in their estimated first operating profit on Tuesday. The estimated first quarter operating profit for Samsung Electromechanics was around $134 million, down some 32% compared to the same period last year. LG Chem said it expects its first quarter operating profit for this year to be down almost 16%, coming in at around $193 million. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
Movement between country to country has been severely curtailed because of the coronavirus pandemic, but several countries are making exceptions for South Korean workers. More than 300 South Koreans will be leaving for Vietnam this week and almost 800 for the Czech Republic next month. Oh Jung-hee reports.
Over 340 South Korean workers are to leave for Vietnam on Wednesday following Vietnam's approval of their exceptional entry. They're workers at around 130 South Korean companies, most of which are small and medium-sized enterprises. According to Seoul's Foreign Affairs Ministry, it's the first case during the pandemic that Vietnam is letting such a large group of workers from different companies enter at the same time. The ministry says the latest measure comes due to Vietnam's economic partnership with South Korea, and as the leaders of the two countries agreed through recent bilateral and multilateral meetings that free economic activities have to be guaranteed despite the coronavirus outbreak. The workers have received COVID-19 tests. They'll be receiving their visas at the airport and will quarantine themselves for 2 weeks upon arrival. Almost 800 South Korean workers of Hyundai Motor Company and its affiliated partners are also to leave for the Czech Republic in May. It's the first case since the start of the crisis that the Czech government is approving the entry of non-EU workers. The South Koreans have to submit health reports and minimize activities unrelated to work. Seoul's Foreign Affairs Ministry says it's been negotiating with 21 countries around the world on allowing the entry of 5,600 South Korean business people. And as of Tuesday, over 3,000 South Koreans have left for 8 countries. It's expected China will soon allow the entry of South Korean workers as well, as Chinese ambassador to Seoul, Shin Haiming says Seoul and Beijing have agreed on a fast-track system. 오정희, Arirang News.
The Seoul city government's providing $4,000 each to 500 companies in the MICE industry. That's short for meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions. It said Monday that it aims to help these companies, which have been going through rough times. Companies that are based in Seoul and have been in operation for longer than 2 years can apply online from May 4th to May 15th. The number of babies born in South Korea this past February fell by 11.3% from a year earlier. That's 51 months in a row the figure's been lower on year. According to Statistics Korea, the number of new babies born in February stood at 22,854, which is the lowest since records were first kept in 1981. On the other hand, the number of deaths rose to an all-time high of more than 250,000, an increase of 10.9% on year, also the highest on record. As predicted for decades, Korea's population actually started to shrink in recent years and has gotten smaller each month so far since last November. That does it for this newscast. Thank you for watching.